I always get very moved when I see that video, the work we're doing now with kids. With the filmmaker David Lynch and I started the David Lynch Foundation almost 12 years ago, and the whole purpose was to take the benefits of meditation to, in many regards, people who may need it the most, who would have least access to it. And in the last 12 years, we've provided scholarships now for 500,000 inner city school kids to meditate. And we're also working with veterans and their families who suffer from post-traumatic stress disorder, and also women and children who are victims of domestic violence and sexual abuse. And for me, it is a deeply, deeply, deeply satisfying experience. I briefly grew up in a very political family in the 1950s and 1960s in the San Francisco Bay Area. And when I say my family was political, I mean that my family was so political that I knew I was a Democrat before I knew I was Jewish. And I grew up, I worked for Bobby Kennedy's presidential campaign in California. I went to the University of California at Berkeley in 1968. There you can put me in that. I wasn't a druggie, I wasn't a hippie, I wasn't a radical. I went to Berkeley with the idea of going to law school, and I wanted to be a US senator like Bobby Kennedy. I wanted to change the world. And when I was there, I had Army tanks parked outside my door. For you people, that was because of the Vietnam War riots. I was going to school full-time, working full-time, pretty much stressed out of my mind. And the field of politics, not surprisingly, at that time lost its fascination for me as a tool for social change. I still follow politics. So I always wanted to work with kids, and my mom had been an educator, so then I thought, all right, I'll get a degree in educational curriculum and I'll start working with little kindergartners, particularly in inner cities. And I was doing all that and pretty stressed. And a friend of mine said, who I trusted, he was like a normal guy, because there were a lot of not normal people there. And he said, you should learn something called Transcendental Meditation. And I said, Peter, I have enough issues with my own religion. I don't need to layer some. And also, it wasn't even a word in my vocabulary, meditation, because I'm like this doer. I want like. He said, no, you should start it. And I remember going to the lecture. I trust him. I went to this lecture, and this woman gave this talk and talked science. And at the end, I got up. I was this snotty-nosed, 18-year-old, arrogant college student. And at the end, I said, how much of this stuff do I have to believe in for it? But I didn't use the word stuff. How much of this stuff do I have to believe in for it to work? And she held a piece of chalk, which they had then, and she dropped it and said, you don't have to believe in gravity for the chalk to fall. And meditation, properly understood and practiced, you don't have to believe in anything. And I learned it, and from the first day, it was such a profound experience of transcending, of going beyond the boundaries and the tension to this like calm, that I decided to become a teacher. And I became a teacher, and I taught Transcendental Meditation at San Quentin Prison to men on death row, and I taught it at, if you know San Francisco, kids in Hunters Point in the Mission District, and then later on Apple Computer, and I taught and taught and taught and taught and taught, and then thousands of people, and then 12 years ago about David Lynch and I got together to start this foundation. What's happened? Why is there so much interest now? You've noticed the word meditation. I remember when I first, my poor parents, you know, oh, what's your son Bobby doing? You know, teaching meditation. What? Teaching meditation. Times have changed. Now in New York, I'm spending as much time in inner city schools and women's shelters and VA hospital in Brooklyn and Manhattan as I am in the banks and big media companies. And I have to tell you, and this is, I'm always truthful. I always wonder when somebody says to be perfectly honest. Well, what were you just moments before? But to be perfectly honest, of all the, you know, if you can group people, I teach business people, I teach students. The people I love teaching the most are people in the fashion industry. There's a I mean, you guys, I sat through yesterday, you guys certainly. And that wonderful article in the Business of Fashion came out a few days ago about mental health problems. But I do love teaching people in the fashion industry. So why so much interest? Why? I think we're in a perfect storm right now. Number one, the problem of stress is so huge. It's become what has been called the bubonic plague of the 21st century. And that is a big word to use because that wiped out a lot of Europe and elsewhere. And that's because modern medicine has no, the second reason, has no magic pill we can take to prevent stress. And there is no magic pill we can take to cure it. We certainly do a good job of self-medicating, you know, the alcohol and the caffeinated throughout the day and all of that stuff. And we manage it with Ambien and Xanax and Klonopin and the list goes on. But it doesn't get to the core. It doesn't get to the core. And we all know, and I'm very grateful to Rodrigo and Imam for inviting me, and I would have come anyway, because I love that guy. We're on a trajectory that's not sustainable. It's just, we know it. Is this industry going to slow down? 6 shows? You know, I mean, it's getting crazier and then all the talk yesterday about how we have to adapt and we have to change and we have to disrupt and we have to throw out the old. Well, who's supposed to do all that? Who's supposed to throw out the old? Who's supposed to keep creating? Who's supposed to be doing all that? Little old me, little old creative me, little old organizing power me, but it's inside. And so everything is pointing to internal. And that's where meditation, so the third reason why meditation I think is so big right now, science, science, and science. I am, in many regards, the least likely meditation teacher you might, if you think of like woo-woo meditation, you'll ever imagine, because I'm a skeptic. I mean, if I'm supposed to eat something healthy, I want to be sure that it's good and it's healthy. Science shows it's healthy. If I'm going to do an exercise, I want to be sure that it works. If I'm going to meditate, do something, I want to be sure that it works. So, and it served me well. So, we're looking at meditation today. And now what I want to take is about 5 minutes. Now 4 minutes and 45 seconds. I want to clarify the whole word, what the word meditation means. Because it's it's like saying food. There's good food and bad food and tasty food and spoiled food and fast food or medicine. There's some medicines that are, so the word meditation is just such a huge, big tent. And because of science, we now understand more clearly legitimate forms of meditation. So to start with that, I'm going to use an analogy. Anybody awake from last night? You're all here? Okay, good. First of all, I have to just say, Imam and the team have done, because I set up events, have done such an amazing job. This is really, really... And you're always so, when one of us is going along, you're always so polite over there waiting, hoping that the person will stop at any moment. But you really do a wonderful job. So here's the analogy of meditation. You're on a little boat, and you're in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. And all of a sudden, you get these giant, huge, 30, 40-foot high waves. Oh, like that. 30, 40-foot high. Where'd that come from? 30, 40-foot high waves. You could rightfully think, sitting on that little boat, the whole ocean is in upheaval. The word whole is a bit of an exaggeration, because if you could do a cross-section of the ocean, you'd realize that there's these little itty-bitty 30-foot waves, but the depth of the ocean is in fact a mile deep. And while the ocean is turbulent on the surface, at its depth, the ocean is silent. And we use that as an analogy for the mind. Surface of our mind is the active thinking mind. I like to call it, in some meditation they call it the monkey mind. I like to call it the gotta mind. I gotta do this, and I gotta do that, and I gotta call him, and I gotta call her, and I gotta make a list, and I gotta find the list, and I gotta make a new list, and I gotta slow down, but I gotta get going, and I gotta get to sleep, but I gotta get up. Anybody? Not. So that's the waves. And in Transcendental Meditation, we hypothesize. Well, even before I say that, it's a natural human desire with all that gotta. It's a natural human desire to say, I'd like to have some inner calm, some inner equanimity, some inner quiet, some access to some inner creative juices, right? And the operative word there is inner. And the question is there such a thing as an inner? And if so, how do we get there? And the purpose of meditation throughout the ages has been to bring calm to the mind. Because if we have a calm mind, in theory, we have a calm body, we think more clearly, our energy's not wasted. So, calm. For the longest time, remember when I said, I started when I was 18, I'm now 66, so I've been meditating 48 years. And for me, meditating is just like brushing, it's like, wow, you've been brushing your teeth for 48 years? I mean, it's like not a big deal, it's just my life. I eat, I meditate, brush my teeth, it's just life. But when I started it, first of all, no one wanted to talk about it, and if it was anything, oh, that's a placebo, or that's hogwash, or that's nonsense meditation, And then, now we're moving over to the science. So then, I don't know, 20 years, 30 years ago, the first research started coming out on Transcendental Meditation, and it started showing some interesting things. It started showing that when you sat to meditate, your body gained a state of rest deeper than sleep, and it woke up your brain, and it was good for high blood pressure. But it was just a couple of studies. And then what came from that was, yeah, could be good for you. All meditations are pretty much the same. It doesn't matter what you do. You jog, you run, you jog, you read a book, you listen to music, you paint, whatever. It's all meditation. Just take the time. And then, interestingly, about 10 years ago, brainwave research, so the instruments got to be so sophisticated that they began to understand that different meditations have different effects in the body and the brain. Because we know everything we do, if you listen to classical music or if you listen to electronic music, it has a different effect in the brain. If you watch a rom-com movie or you watch a David Lynch horror movie, it has a different effect on your brain. So what they did is they took a whole bunch of people and they studied people doing different types of meditations. They came up with 3 distinct types of meditation, of all the things we're doing. First is called focused attention. And that's your classic concentration type of meditation. That's like the end of a yoga class and the teacher says, okay, now, Bob, I want you to clear your mind of thoughts. I think to myself, clear my mind of thoughts, and then I'll create peace in the Middle East. Who doesn't have a very busy mind? Busy mind. So, but this meditation wants to create calm and to calm the mind, thoughts are seen to be the enemy, so you stop thinking by concentrating. And that's like trying to stop waves on the surface of the ocean. And the EEG for that is something called gamma brain waves, gamma, 20 to 50 cycles per second. And that is a state of your mind when you are really focused. Just leave me alone when you're working on something. I'm focused here. And it turned out, focused attention meditations are good cognitive training. That means we train the mind in meditation, so out of meditation we think more focused, more clearly. Second type of meditation is called open monitoring. And that's a lot of mindfulness techniques. People here do mindfulness? Yeah. So mindfulness techniques are observational tools. You're in the middle, you're the thick of it, it's intense. 2 in the afternoon, things are going crazy. You say, whoa, wait a minute. You stop, you close your eyes. We're going to do a little bit here before we end. Some breathe in and out through your nostrils for a minute or two. It has a calming effect. It's an observational tool. You're supposed to emotionally disengage from the meaning of those thoughts, because if I think about my ex, I get really mad. Or if I think about the work I have to do and I have no time to do it, I get really tense. So mindfulness and a body scan just allows us to disengage. That creates something called theta brain waves, 5 to 7 cycles per second, slower, and that's a state of the mind when we are quietly thinking. And that's a wonderful coping tool, among other things. Third, they discovered self-transcending, and that's where Transcendental Meditation comes in. Oh, and in that analogy of the ocean with mindfulness, you're just watching the waves rise and fall, and you're not letting any of the waves irritate you to no end, which means you're not allowing thoughts about that person to really... You're just learning to disengage, to bring calm. And the third, automatic self-transcending, that is Transcendental Meditation. And that is, we're not trying to stop waves on the surface. We're not watching the waves. In Transcendental Meditation, we hypothesize. Note the word hypothesize. I didn't say believe. We hypothesize that deep within every one of us, in the room, everyone we know, every one of us, right now, there's a level of the mind that is already perfectly calm and settled and wide awake. It's me. It's the quiet Bob, before I'm thinking and worrying and planning and which I never knew existed, because I'm always thinking. And the word transcendental means to transcend, to go beyond the restrictions or limitations and just settle down and access that transcendent level, that quiet field, which is there anyway. And how do I know that's happening when I meditate? How do I know I'm not just making stuff up? Because there's a constellation of changes that take place in the brain and the body that they never see at any other time. First off, the brainwave becomes what's called alpha 1. Is this like too much brain? Anyway, I'm almost done. Alpha 1, which is 8 to 10 cycles per second. And you know those moments when you're most creative, everything quiet? Actually, it can come in a relationship when you're with a person. If you want to talk to somebody, you don't say, honey, let's go to a sports bar. You say, let's go someplace quiet. Because when we settle down, we're more ourself. And it's closer to a transcendent experience. When you're creating, a musician, an artist, a designer, there's moments of flow. And that is a rare moment, but that's what transcending is. It's to go beyond that noise and access that silence. And so when that happens, you have alpha 1. But here's another thing. Anybody here ever feel any anxiety? I didn't think so. There's a hormone that the body creates called cortisol. Probably heard of that? Cortisol? Bad guy. It's secreted by the adrenal glands. And that is present when we're anxious. And then when it's present when we're anxious, it makes us more anxious. And then we secrete more cortisol and more anxious, and it becomes a vicious cycle. And then we wake up feeling anxious, or we just can't seem to get rid of it, sometimes for no reason. So when you get a good night's sleep, cortisol levels will drop about 8 or 10%. They start to come up a little bit in the morning to get us out the door, 8 or 10%. During 20 minutes of Transcendental Meditation, the research shows cortisol levels drop 30 to 40%. Every time. It's not magic. We're accessing a mechanism that every human being has that we've just lost access to. And isn't it interesting that, particularly in your profession, the most modern of, well, probably every profession, the most modern of stresses, the most modern of ailments, stress, tension, anxiety, you have a profession that's under incredible transformation and change. Nobody knows what's next. We can't predict, intuition, what's next. That the antidote to that is not some magic pill with horrific side effects. But it's the most ancient of meditation practices that requires no belief, no philosophy, no change in lifestyle. You can be 100% skeptical because you're a human being to access what? Your own inner quiet self. And when you have that experience, it transforms in meditation, your mind and body. And the reason why we do it is not as an escape, but because we take that with us out into our life. And the whole day we're in the zone, more and more the zone. The whole day we're thinking with that alpha one. The brain is connected. And that's the purpose of meditation. And we're going to do a little 1-minute thing here, a little breathing that's not transcendental meditation, but just a little breathing exercise that you can do. But I just wanted to conclude by saying, take this really seriously. The problem of stress is not just going to go away. And the idea of just bucking up and being tough and pushing forward, there's nothing sustainable about it at all. And 80 to 90% of all illnesses that we see in the world today are either caused by stress or exacerbated. So this is the time for an intervention. This is the time to take this seriously. And don't just dabble. Don't just sort of like if you had malaria, you wouldn't just, well, I think I'll just go online and I'll just see what they tell me I should do. Take it seriously. Find a certified teacher. Learn from a teacher. One-to-one. Transcendental meditation is taught that way. There's some mindfulness practices, but learn it and do it. Thank you very much. We're now going to... So what I want you to do, and this is, I just want you to close your eyes for a second. And, well, here, don't do that yet. This is called a pulse. Anybody hear of Ayurvedic medicine, Ayurveda? It has the same roots as yoga. So this is not a meditation as much. I want you to, all right, take your left hand up there like that, your right arm, and then wrap your 2 fingers on your pulse like that, okay? Now, according to Ayurveda, here, I'll do it again. So left hand, wrap around like that. According to Ayurveda, when the mind puts its attention on the blood that's coursing through your body and your poor heart that's just working like a dog all the time, that putting your mind and body together for just even a minute, you can close your eyes. If you get restless, you can open your eyes. You're just letting your attention sink into the pulse. So you can put your arm down, actually be more comfortable. You don't have to like that. So this is really fun, Bob. So just comfortably close your eyes, and for 1 minute, just easy, not looking for anything flashy. It's not flashy, but it's just a nice little thing. All right, you can open your eyes. So I want to thank you all and Imam and Rodrigo for inviting me to be here. It's been an honor to be here, and thank you very much.